Testing. Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. We'll wait for people to log on. Hopefully everybody had a great day. I guess this is the calm before the storm, meaning that tomorrow we go back to school. We go back to full-time in the classroom. So hopefully that won't take too much out of you tomorrow. Good to see everybody popping on. We're almost up to a full class. I didn't put any times for openings for tomorrow up. So if you have any time, I know that I think I've got Ben driving at 9:25. But if you have a study and you want to drive tomorrow, please contact me at the end of class. If not, and someone can put this up in the comment section on YouTube. I know that I have the schedule, but I believe you get out at 2:30 now. So we can start driving at 2:30 or so. So if someone wants to drive at 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, that'd be great. So we can get some drives in tomorrow. Think about Friday, and then think about Saturday. We really have to think about the school week that you have off. And I think I'm going to have you text me at the end of tonight's class whether you're going to be around during school vacation. That way we can drive 3 to 4 times, hopefully, with a lot of you that are lagging behind. Some of you are right in striking distance. I mean, we are so close. We're within 3-4 hours. We're good to go to be done by the end of the program. Some of you that don't have that time in, we're going to have to work just a little bit harder to find availability. Because as I said before, once your class is over, I've got to collect the textbooks and another class starts right in the next week. They're going to be looking at the camera here and asking for drive times, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to schedule you in. So I want to try to get as many of you in during April vacation as I can. And I know it's vacation and you've got other things to do, but try to slot some free time for driving, and it would be useful. Tonight's class, and for your homework, you are supposed to do Chapter 18 on responsible driving. So make sure that you send that along to me. We're going to break up the topic of alcohol and drugs into 2 categories. The first category is going to be attitudes and behavior. So this is going to be a lot of the information that you probably received with Q in health class. So we're going to kind of review some things, but we're going to kind of tie in. The driving aspect of what it's like out on the roadways. And then tomorrow's class will be focusing more on if you were to be stopped by the police for suspicion of driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, what's going to take place? What are the steps that they're going to take? What is it like down at the station? What are my consequences? How does it tie in with insurance? And because we weren't able to finish up last night's topic, I'm going to sneak in a little bit of information on nighttime driving and fatigue driving, and then we're going to close that out. So that's going to clear everything up. Then it's going to be a huge break. Because of school vacation, we don't have class next week in the evening. So there should be availability for drive times. If someone wants to drive at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, I'm all up for that. So we can do that. So let's get into our first topic. And what I want you to do is to get out a piece of paper, because you're going to be taking quite a few notes tonight and tomorrow. The manual doesn't do a very good job of really going over the topic of alcohol and drugs. And it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. For about 5 years, I helped the state of New Hampshire run their first offender program for drunk driving. So when you get convicted of drunk driving, the state of New Hampshire requires you to take an educational class, and I kind of oversaw that program for about 5 years. So what I'd like you to do is get a blank piece of paper, and I want you to, let's see if I can get this out here. We'll do it this way. Yeah. All right. So if you can see. Draw two circles, driving and drinking. All right. I want you to draw two circles, driving and drinking. All right. So that's the first thing I want you to do. So we're going to kind of put things in perspective. Like I said, we're going to have a discussion. So you're going to have to share on the YouTube comments. You're going to have to share on your phone tonight. So you are going to have to converse back and forth with me about what's going on. So with those two circles, the circle of driving is the sphere of learning how to drive, getting experience with your parents, having your license for your first couple years. I mean, you're really new at it. Okay, some of you have been driving for a while. I get it. You're so close to getting your driver's license, and soon you're going to have it. But we're still going to classify you as a new driver. All right, and that takes place. And under the word driving, I want you to put the number 16, because that's when you legally can drive a vehicle all by yourself in the state of New Hampshire. Now, under the circle of drinking, okay, put 21. Okay, the age of 21. So if my math serves me right, from 16 to 21 is 5 years. So your world of learning how to drive and your world of learning about alcohol or experiencing alcohol is far removed. So those two worlds should never come together. You should never find yourself in a situation for the next 5 years where you're behind the wheel of a car and alcohol is part of the equation. Right? Okay, that's the truth. That's the truth. But if we take a look at studies, and this has bared out over the years, as far as I can remember, even when I was working for the state 20 years ago, most young people have their first experience with alcohol around the age of 12. Okay, we're not talking about drinking and getting drunk. We're talking about, and I've got a can of lemon seltzer here. Okay, we're talking about taking a drink of alcohol, could be beer, wine, hard liquor, and just taking a sip. And you're going to have your first taste of alcohol. Now, I'm a betting man. I love to bet on sports. We have 23 people in class right now. If I was to bet how many of you have tried the taste of alcohol, 23, I'm going to say there's probably at least 15 of you. 7 or 8, probably not. If I'm a betting guy, I'm saying there's at least 15 of you that have had some alcohol. But yet we know the way it's written in law is that legally you can't consume. And I'm not going to get into the legality of what your parents do in your own house, okay? Or whether you had a taste because of religion, because of wine in the Catholic Church, with communion. I get it. I'm talking about out with friends and you're just experimenting, okay? Everybody says beer is bad. Let me try it, okay? So I'm not going to get into the good or the bad about it, although you're not supposed to consume alcohol to the age of 21. But what you do, and I'm not going to ask you to, please don't put it on the comments here on YouTube. I don't want to know, those of you that have. But I have a feeling if we were in class, I'd go around the room and I'd just ask you, nod your head yes or no, so I'd have some idea. Once you turn to be a sophomore or junior in high school, because you may have older siblings, you start hanging around older people. You get that freedom of being away from your house because now you're able to drive, so you're able to drive to certain locations. You're more apt to find alcohol being part of the environment, and it's going to be difficult at times to give in or not to give in to the pressures of at least trying alcohol. And we're going to talk a little bit about drugs tonight, but the main focus is going to be on alcohol. That's the easiest to obtain, although it is getting easier to obtain marijuana now because a lot of states are legalizing it. Um, so that's going to come into the equation too. But any type of drug that you have, it will affect the way that you drive. And that's one thing I want you to take away from tonight, tomorrow night's class. So the other thing that I want you to do, and this is the other part of what I want you to write down, I want you to write down the word why and why not. And this I do want you to do, okay? And I do want it on the YouTube comments so I get to see what everybody says while I'm actually talking and instructing. I would like you to write down 2 reasons why you think people drink alcohol. And I want you to give me 2 reasons why you think people don't drink alcohol. Because people are going to fall on one side or the other as you get older. All right? And there's no right or wrong, but everything that you do in life, there's a reason behind what you do. There has to be. Okay, you don't just blindly do something like choosing a restaurant to go to. You feel like having tacos, buying a sweatshirt. I like the color blue. Okay, there's something behind what we do. So when it comes to why at the age of 16, 17, 18, what is moving you towards trying something that you know you shouldn't partake in until the age of 21? So what's pushing you to the limit of crossing over where you know you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing? So I'm going to just pick a song here that I have on my cue. So let's do it kind of funky. So give me 2 reasons on YouTube why you think people drink, and give me 2 reasons why people don't. So I'll let the music play, and we'll see what you come up with answers. Getting some good answers, so I want everybody to participate. So you gotta put something down there. These are all good reasons. I like what people are writing down. So I'm going to kind of get out of the music here for a moment, and let's just kind of talk about some of the reasons. Social, okay? Have a good time. Peer pressure, curiosity, be cool, to get drunk. Yep, absolutely. I had a college roommate. That was his goal on a Friday night. I am going to drink until I get drunk. The thrill of it, the taste. A lot of people don't put down taste because it's usually an acquired taste. Until you find something that you do like. How it makes them feel. Okay, reasons why not. They don't want to get into trouble with the law. Coping with pain. It's against the law. They don't like the taste. They don't like being drunk or losing control. Religious reasons, yes. It's bad for them. We're going to talk about that. All these are good reasons why. Addiction, yeah, could go, yeah, negative effects, yeah, don't like the taste. All these were really good. And like I said, you're going to fall into one of these categories when you choose. I would say the majority of people are going to be faced with a choice while they're young. under the age of 21, there's going to come a time when someone's going to say, "Come on, just do it, just try it." And I think for those of you that have tried alcohol, I think you could probably go back to the time you in an instant. If I said, "Okay, go back to where you were and what you had to drink," your mind will go right back. Time, place, people, what you had to drink, your mind just remembers those type of things. And if you had a bad experience, your mind's going to go right back. Okay, I got dizzy. I didn't feel good. I got sick. I stumbled. They tell me I did things that I don't remember. All these things go into play. I want you to take a look at this.
Have a shot.
Here, drink some of this.
Have a shot.
First time you do it, you put yourself at risk because it takes a toll on you.
I drink to experiment and also to relieve stress.
There's always a reason to do it. I'm stressed. I don't like my parents.
It goes from school, like, does what you see, what you do, you just want to fit in and you just want to try that out. Why is everybody else doing it? There must be something, great about it.
I was 14 years old when I tried weed with my friends.
She had done it before I did, and she showed me and she said it was okay to do it, and she liked it, and I tried it.
It was just a new feeling that I needed to explore further.
I started thinking if I only drank on the weekends, I wouldn't get addicted to drinking.
But I don't think I'll get addicted or to any type of drug.
In the beginning, I felt like I was controlling it, but after that, it got out of control. Like as I said before, I was high for 6 months.
It was every day. I'd be back there in the alley smoking weed with everybody else.
I drank so much that I started throwing up my stomach lining.
My health deteriorated. I've lost homes. I've never been able to hold a job. I've lived on the streets.
I ended up losing my scholarship in college.
Everything I wanted to be just went down the drain.
I could justify using in order to enjoy myself and other things.
I just felt like I was dying.
They opened the door for us and she was dead on the bed with the needle in her arm.
Gave a shot of adrenaline to his heart, it flatlined and killed him right there.
But when it's all over, only person that's paying the price is you.
So, as I was telling you, you can see that all these people can remember right back to the time that they had their first experience with alcohol. And the thing that I want you to realize is you never know where it's going to take you. All right. Once you start taking a drug, okay, and it is a drug, alcohol is a drug, and we'll be talking about other types of drugs too, but anything that you do to your body to change your blood chemistry, it will affect you physically and mentally. It does. Okay. And we know that addiction takes place. So I want you to, and I hope you can see this. Okay. I want you to write down in your notes, non-user, social, problem, alcoholic. So I want you to write down those 4 categories, because what I want you to realize is that we all start out in the non-user category. Everybody's born. And did you realize that when you are born, there are only 2 things that you need to survive for the rest of your life? You could be out on a stranded island. The only type of liquid that you need is your mother's milk and water. You can go a lifetime just on those 2 liquids. But because of cow's milk, because of fruit juices, because of soda, energy drinks, other things, we start to get liquid into our bodies. We start implementing other things that we like because of taste. And I think that you will find that a lot of people, they know that alcohol has a tendency to give the perception that you're cool, that you're from a certain class of people, wine, hard liquor, mixed drinks, it gives the perception that you're, probably well off, or you like to have a good time. So people say, well, I want to be like that. I want to experience what they're experiencing. They look to be having a great time. I really want to be like them. So non-user, social, problem, alcoholic. So we all start out in the non-user category. All right. So that's everybody. And by the way, let me give you an example. My parents, I have never seen my parents drink alcohol ever. At weddings, funerals, if there's alcohol on the table, they never touch it. Never, ever. Never, never. They've never had it in the house, ever. Okay. Social. Okay. Social. People that have 1 or 2 drinks, they like to have it with a meal. They have it at celebrations. They do it infrequently and not usually out of control. They usually can get behind the wheel of the car and they're not going to be affected. They don't get into fights. They don't have arguments. They don't miss school. They don't miss work. So people can drink alcohol and be responsible. But we got to focus on your age group right now, being under the age of 21. This is you've got to be a non-user right now. The next category is a problem drinker. So that means somebody that drinks to excess, where they can't function. They get into fights. They don't show up for work. They don't show up for school. They may have a DWI. Their health starts to deteriorate. An alcoholic, all those symptoms or things that we talked about with a problem driver or drinker, it's going to show up as an alcoholic too, but it's going to probably be more frequent. So non-user, social, problem, and alcoholic. And what I want you to take away from this is we're starting as a non-user. Some of you are going to go to a different category later in life. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience. I, too, was in high school when I first had my experience with alcohol. Little bit under the age, because back in my time, 18 was legal drinking at one point, and then it moved up to 21, which is 21 in every state now. But I did not like the taste of alcohol, and I told you my parents never had it in the house. So I remember my first time, and I remember that I didn't like it, so I actually tipped it over so I wouldn't have to finish it. I had my first drink with my best friend. My best friend became an alcoholic. I'm here teaching you, don't drink and drive. Our lives took different. Soon after that, we took a different path. I was into sports and my grades. He was into having a good time. He was a very good athlete. He was actually a better athlete than I was. But he would like to have a good time more than, doing the right thing. And the unfortunate thing, I'm living a life now where I don't drink that often anymore. Definitely not on a regular basis. But my friend passed away in his 30s. He drowned in his own vomit. He passed out in the bathtub in his bathroom, and he drowned in his own vomit. You just never know when you take that first sip where you're going to end up. Some people go on and they have to have it. That's the addiction part. And then the other people learn how to control it. And being in a college town, you can see where there are a lot of college kids. They're going to teeter between that problem social. Some are going to keep going from problem to alcoholic. Some people are going to have problems in college with alcohol, but yet they're going to graduate and then they're going to get married, have kids, and they're going to move back towards social. But it's a real problem. And it's a problem on the roadways because people drive to where they're going to get alcohol. They consume at parties, at ball games or whatever, and they feel that they have to get home. And that should not be the case. You should always be able to find alternative ways to get home. So tonight, alcohol and drugs and driving, what should you know and why? So we basically went through a lot of these already. So let me show you, okay, let's get through some definitions. Just write down, and I think you already know this, but alcohol is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant. Slows down the central nervous system. There is nothing of vital nutrients in alcohol. No vitamins, proteins, minerals, nothing to maintain your body. That's why people who drink in excess get beer bellies. Why their health starts to slide. All calories, no nutrients. I don't want you to write everything down here, but I do want to explain a few things. For those of you that think that you're going to go out with friends and have one drink or two drinks and go home and your parents are going to have no idea that you had anything to drink, don't fool yourselves. Most parents are not dummies. Okay? When you get within a couple feet from somebody, you can probably smell the odor of alcohol in their breath. So when you start to drink alcohol, some of it's going to get absorbed through the lining of your mouth and on your tongue. So anytime that you speak to somebody, there's going to be an odor. How many of you in the summertime have been around relatives and they've been drinking alcohol and you can smell alcohol in their breath? They can't smell it on their breath, but you can smell it. Now, most people think that the stomach is where, once the alcohol gets into your body, the stomach, oh man, once it gets in the stomach, you're lost. You're going to, it's not going to be good. Not actually. The stomach is your holding tank. What you've got to be concerned about is the small intestines. The minute the alcohol gets to the small intestines, now you got to worry. If it sits in your stomach, let's say that you drink a 6-pack of alcohol really, really quick, there's a chance that if you, stuck your finger in your mouth, you're going to throw up half of it. Your stomach is just holding it. Once it gets to the small intestines, then it's going to the bloodstream, and now it's going to affect your whole body, and there's nothing that you can do about it. We can do something about it if it's in your stomach, because we can pump your stomach. Now, there's a thing, and it's at the very last part of this sentence here for your stomach, a thing that's called a pyloric valve. The pyloric valve opens and closes to allow liquid nutrients to get into the small intestines. That's where you're going to absorb most of the alcohol. And once it gets into the small intestines, then it goes through the bloodstream. And once it's in your blood, it goes to every single organ in your body. So people that abuse alcohol constantly, they pickle their body. Their eyes, their lungs, their liver, their pancreas, every gland, everything. Everything will be affected by that alcohol. Now, the reason why I want you to write down these two things, I want you to write down liver and brain, because I think of all this body organs, these are the two that you really have to have a good concept of how is this going to affect me if I drink alcohol. So let's put it in simple terms. I don't want to get into the complicated percentages and stuff like that. Just put down the liver helps you burn alcohol. And what do I mean by burn alcohol? There's a negative aspect to alcohol, and your liver basically detoxes that bad part of alcohol, and basically to the rate of a half an ounce per hour. So the best way to remember that is 1 drink, 1 hour. So you drink 4 drinks, 4 hours. 6 drinks, 6 hours. 12 drinks, 12 hours. Now, if you're drinking for 3 hours and you're drinking 12 beers, you still got to account for the 3 hours that you were drinking. So now it's 9 at the very end, not 12. So some of it does burn up, or what we call oxidize, while you're drinking. Now, the part that I want you to know about the brain is that it takes a little bit of time for alcohol to get to the brain, about 20 to 40 minutes, because it's got to pass through all the organs and everything. Why is this important? Because people that drink alcohol very fast, they don't think that they're bad until they get behind the wheel of the car. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of wipe their forehead and they go, whoa, man, that drink had a punch. Man, it's really throwing me for a loop. Oh, I got to get to my son's Little League game. That's only another 20 minutes away. I'll make it. And then he runs a stop sign. Going and drinking very quickly and not giving your body time to oxidize, burn up that alcohol, puts you at a disadvantage. Now, the other thing that I want you to write down with the brain is that your eyes will always be affected. If they were going to, and I don't know if you are familiar with Lady Diana, the princess over in England. She died in a car crash, and it was such a violent car crash. It took a while for them to pull the cars apart and get her body, and then they had to bring it for an autopsy. The way that they could tell how much alcohol was in everybody's system is they did a biopsy on the eye. Your eyes don't lie. The eyes will retain a percentage of alcohol and you can basically tell how intoxicated somebody is. And the other thing I want you to write down is judgment and reasoning is the first thing that will start to be impaired. The minute you start drinking, 1-2 drinks, your reasoning skills, like pulling out from a stop sign, what to do at a yellow light, what to do with a pedestrian, even if it's just a microsecond, you're not going to be at your best. It's going to be a little bit worse than if you are at your best. And basically, we didn't get to it last night. Fatigue's the same way. People that are almost falling asleep, are very tired while they're driving, their reaction is the same as a person that's been drinking. So when you may not be drinking, but you're very tired, you're going to look like a drunk driver. They may pull you over because you're going to kind of show the same type of characteristics out on the roadway. And we'll talk more about that. These are all the systems that are affected. Oh, yeah, let's take a look at this. Let's hear some real life stories. You know how everybody says to have a good time, drinking is so much fun, going to a party, everybody screaming, hollering, and that's part of it. I think as you get older and you know how to drink responsibly, that is going to be part of the equation. Drinking will kind of relax you a little bit, and it's social, and and it's going to be probably part of your life. But where does it flip over? Where does it go to where now you're that problem drinker? Here are some people that are problem drinkers or alcoholics. Listen to their story.
Vodka,
tequila,
scotch,
beer,
wine,
rum,
gin, whiskey, alcohol.
Alcohol probably took 20 years of my life, and you can't get that back.
Alcohol is a drug, which most people don't think it is, but it actually is. It's classed as a depressant, meaning it slows down vital functions in the body.
Alcohol is made through the fermentation of fruits and grains.
The process of fermentation is basically letting fruit sit and rot until it can produce a mind-altering effect when you drink it.
There's different types of things you can drink that have different amounts of alcohol in them. Like a beer, if you just drink beer, that has 2 to 6% alcohol. Wine is about 8 to 20% alcohol. And then you got your hard liquors, which are like vodka or whiskey, which are about 40 to 50% alcohol.
When someone drinks 2 or more drinks, it acts as a stimulant. When they drink more than that, it acts as a depressant.
If you binge drink, what you're doing is you're just drinking repeatedly over and over large amounts and large quantities of alcohol. If you put that much alcohol in your system at one time, you can get alcohol poisoning, which could lead you to go into a coma or even kill you.
12 years old. I was in the 7th grade.
When I was in 8th grade, I think I was 13 years old.
It became very regular at 14 years of age.
15 years old when I first started drinking.
17 years old, starting going out to parties, doing things like that.
At first, drinking was a sociable thing, I drank with my friends.
Thought I was really cool going out with all the older guys, and I'd try to show off in front of them and drink myself stupid. I just go out and party all night.
By the time I was probably 15 is where I started drinking at school. Putting it in a water bottle, I would take vodka or gin, something clear that looked like water, and I would just drink in class and pop mints in my mouth.
We'd go in, break into his parents' liquor cabinet, fill up our super big gulps full of ice and Everclear, and then stop by 7-Eleven and fill the rest of it up with Coke, and then make it to first period.
I was drinking not just at parties and stuff, but after classes and after work and even at work.
I waited tables, so it was very easy access to alcohol.
It was just hard to say no. It was so readily available, and it was constantly there.
My drug problem wasn't something that happened immediately. It happened so slowly that I missed the fact that I was addicted to it.
It became routine, a way of life.
The only type of people I would hang out with were people who were using drugs or drinking alcohol. And it got to the point where that's all I cared about.
It became far more than just a partying thing. It was a necessity.
Without having alcohol in me, I could not function.
I kind of became a loner because all I ever wanted to do was just drink and drink and drink.
It felt like it was my only friend. Felt like that it was always there for me somewhere. When things were going bad, I could always have a few drinks. Well, for me, it was never a few drinks. It was always a lot of drinks.
I was consuming about 30 beers a day, a whole case of beer,
and 3/4 of a gallon of light rum. I would essentially have that and black out every night.
I could do nothing but drink 24/7, drink, pass out, drink, pass out.
I literally started drinking so much that I would shake if I didn't have a drink.
When I would not drink, I'd get extremely sick. Deathly sick.
Just really achy all over, and you have headaches, and you're so dehydrated that you have no energy.
Alcohol had been, in and out my body so much that it had tore away some of the lining of my esophagus, and blood was creeping in.
I was a physical disaster. I was that far in my addiction of physical withdrawal that when I shut that alcohol intake off, my body tried to shut down.
The actual withdrawal from alcohol can kill you, for one thing, if it's too intense. Your body has no vitamins, or it's dehydrated, and you can have DTs, you can seizure to death. That's terrible.
I got a phone call, that my father was in the hospital and that he was really, really sick, and that he wasn't going to make it. So the next day I got on a plane to go home, and my only way to confront this was to drink alcohol. So I showed up at the airport pretty drunk, and my family, saw me there, and, they didn't know what to say. The worst thing about it is that my father was kept conscious so that he could see me before he passed away. But instead of disgracing his memory, they'd put him on life support.
I had gotten kicked out of this bar for fighting. I was beyond drunk, and I was attacked and raped. And I went home, and I stayed in my apartment for a week. My mom would come knocking on the door. I'd pretend I wasn't home. I felt like it was my fault. I was the one that was at that bar. I was the one that was getting drunk.
I went home, and I had a roommate. And for some reason, we got into an argument, which resulted in a fight, and the cops got called. I blacked out for part of it, so I couldn't figure out why I was waking up in jail.
I drank some beer there at the bar inside the airport. I just ordered another beer and put my backpack on and started walking through the terminal smoking a cigarette. I didn't care what I was supposed to be doing, and I ended up getting a fight with the police there at the airport, and I woke up in jail. I had staples in my head.
In the military, I woke up and I actually had to crawl on my hands and knees off the flight deck of the carrier because I couldn't walk, and then I got discharged from that and lost a girlfriend and a kid and my whole life.
I drank to blackout one night. Well, sometime about an hour later, I got back up. I went to my bedroom. My wife wasn't there. I went to the girls' bedroom, and they were all in the bed together, basically hiding from me through a blackout. And I decided right then that I couldn't stay there anymore. I was afraid I was going to hurt someone at a blackout.
I haven't had a drink in 3 years, yet I'm reminded daily of my alcohol abuse because of the long-term effects. I have horrible short-term memory, and it makes everyday life very difficult for me. Just remembering names, remembering how to do things.
As a result of alcohol, I had high blood pressure, and I still have it.
Destroys your internal organs, and it can destroy your brain functions, your handwriting, small motor skills. It's definitely a poison.
I have liver pains, bone and muscle aches that just used to not be there, and it's not from age. I'm not that old. I should be in my prime right now, and I've probably aged myself 20 years through alcohol abuse.
Alcohol is slow to kill, but it's the most hideous form of death. If I had known how sneaky and dangerous and insidious alcohol is, if somebody had kind of told me, and if I had known that it's not this symbol for a good time, I think that would have made a difference.
It's not like some of the other drugs that instantly after your first time you're hooked and you're addicted to it. A lot of times, most of my friends didn't even like the taste of beer when they first started drinking.
It started out as something that was fun, something we did on weekends. How it progressed to an everyday, all-day thing is beyond me. I have no answer to that. I do not understand how that happened, but it did.
It's nothing but misery. The last 12, 13 years of my life, I've spent probably over $500,000, and over 4 or 5 years of that has been institutionalized, whether it be in a alcohol treatment rehab facility or, incarcerated.
Alcohol's just as bad, if not worse, than heroin or barbiturates or anything else. I don't know, if 60% of people go out to drink and get drunk, chances are that they're going to lead to something else and they're going to end up on the downward spiral.
I may not be very old, but I have definitely seen some hellish things from alcohol. To be honest, I didn't think someone could get to the point that I was at my age. I thought that took years and years, but no, downward spiral.
It might seem fun at the beginning, but after you get stuck in that lifestyle for years, you realize how not fun it is. It's terrifying.
Wow. That is definitely the truth about drinking, because at times on the TV and on the radio, we associate drinking with parties and good times. But we have to know that there's a flip side to it, and it's really hard to tell when you're going to get to that point where you've crossed over from that social. My best way to explain it is that if you're drinking or doing drugs and your life is getting worse, meaning your grades are going down, you're having arguments with friends and family, getting into fights, maybe have some type of a crash while you were drugging or drinking, that should be a sign to you that your life is spiraling downhill. That's basically when you've gone from social to problem. The other thing in the video that I want you to write down, and they talked about this, I'll probably test you on this on the final. A serving of alcohol is considered 1 can of beer, 12 ounces, 5 or 6 ounces of wine, 1 shot of hard liquor, which is around 50-60% alcohol, percentage of alcohol. So beer, wine, and hard liquor have different percentages of alcohol. So you can't go by the glass. It has to go by the type of liquid that you're consuming. This is what, you almost have to be a chemist. This is what makes drinking so dangerous, because people don't realize how much they've consumed, especially if it's something that you're pouring into a glass. I mean, of course, if we have a can of beer or a bottle of beer, we know it's 12 ounces, and we can usually count fairly well, within 3, 4, 5, I guess, over 2-3 hours of time. If people are handing you a drink, you might forget. But for the most part, we basically know how our body's going to react to, a certain percentage of alcohol, amount of alcohol. But when people start drinking beyond what they can remember, that is a sure sign that you probably shouldn't get behind the wheel of a car. What I want to do now is just to give you an idea of how does the body react to the alcohol. What would be some of the physical, mental capabilities that I'm going to lose as I start to drink? Now, most of you, I would assume that you probably know this, but alcohol, which we call ethanol, and if you've ever gone to the hospital to be operated on, they have an anesthesiologist that stands over you and makes sure that your heart rate and your blood pressure and everything stays within a certain level, because they're trying to keep you in between life and death. And that's what the anesthesiologist's job is to do, is to make sure that you do not feel pain, that you do not sit up during the operation, that you stay, basically almost comatose until the operation's over and they've sewed you up and they bring you back to the recovery room. Alcohol is the liquid form of ether. You are basically depressing your central nervous system the more that you drink. I don't know if you knew that or not, but basically you're unsupervised, given a bottle, let's say a bottle of bourbon or whiskey, and your friends are going to bet that for $50 you couldn't guzzle this, and you think, it doesn't look like a whole lot. It looks like, it's probably, 3 soft drinks amount, 36 ounces. I could probably drink 36 ounces. Sure, I'll drink it. The volume's not the problem. The problem is the percentage of alcohol that's in what you're drinking and how it's going to sedate your body. So I'm going to kind of go through what we call the stages of influence, and all I want you to write down is the very top line. So let me give you an example. So here I want you to write sobriety. Most people can drink in their BAC level, and BAC stands for blood alcohol content. You need to know that, BAC. Some states go BAL, blood alcohol level. It's the percentage of alcohol to blood in your system. So at a 0.01 to 0.05, most people are sober, which means there is no detection of alcohol by looking at a person. You really couldn't tell that they had consumed alcohol. They look normal. They act normal. This is people that go out to eat and drink socially. Okay, so we have no problems here. Let's bump it up. 0.03 to 0.12. Euphoria. Here's the word that most of you probably will recognize. Man, I want to drink till I get buzzed. Okay, if you want to feel the effects of alcohol, your body starts to change just a little. You can feel it in your head. We call it a buzz. You're at this level. 0.03 to 0.12. Now, legal limit, and don't get confused when I say legal. Legal does not mean that you can drink up to this level. It just means that you're not going to be prosecuted at 0.02. Anyone under the age of 22 in New Hampshire, 21 in New Hampshire, they can't have above a 0.02 in their system. So about one drink. Once you get that one drink in you, you better stop, because anything above that, you're going to probably be above a 0.2. Some of you that are, low in weight, like 120 or less, one drink would probably put you at a 0.02. But if you're a guy and, about my size, about 5'10", about, 200 pounds, 210, you're not going to be at a 0.02. So this is where you are kind of that stimulant thing that they talked about in the last video. A lot of people want to drink till they get that buzz, that stimulant feeling. But soon after that, then you're going to the depressant aspect of the drug. You're very sociable, talkative. You have self-confidence. That's very common. 0.09 to 0.25 is excitement. This is where it decreases your inhibition, loss of critical judgment, impairment of memory, decreased sensory response. This is where people call your name and you don't hear them. Or you say, "What'd you say? Say it again. I can't hear you." Muscular incoordination. I'm going to get out of here for a second. So hold on. Okay, this is something that I want you to do after tonight. I'm going to take my, I'm going to keep this on. Well, I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get dizzy. If you were to spin around, if I was to go around 10 times, spin around 10 times really, really fast, and then if you were to watch me talking to the mic right now, I'd probably do this. If you spin yourself around, there's fluid in your ear that's trying to give you your equilibrium, and your body's trying to compensate for it to keep you upright. So if you want to know what you look like at this last level, spin yourself around 10 times and have someone videotape you. This is what you're going to look like. You're going to stagger. You're not going to be able to walk in a straight line. You won't be able to stay still. So that's at a 0.09, 0.25. Loss of critical judgment. Definitely something that you need as a driver. Decrease inhibitions. Think about this. Hey, the light's yellow. Let's speed up. Let's beat the light. A lot of these things carry over into your driving. You may think you're okay at a party, that you really don't show much signs of the effects of alcohol. You feel a little bit different, a little bit buzzed. Hey, but let's go home. Let's go get something to eat. Let's go get a pizza. You never know when the light changes, something comes out in front of you, a person, an animal, a car. You're not your best. You hit something, the police come. Hey, have you had anything to drink tonight? All of a sudden, it's no longer hitting another car. Now it's driving under the influence of alcohol. Now you're in a heap of trouble. And tomorrow, let me tell you, we're going to get into what the consequences are. You want to change your life in a second? Do something stupid on a Friday night, like drink or do drugs and get behind the wheel of a car. I will guarantee you, if you have a car crash and you've got alcohol, drugs in your system, you will not forget the next year of your life. It'll be something you will remember forever. No fun. Believe me, talk to people. I don't know if you have friends or relatives or no. And, this would be another time to take a look. Well, we are going to do this tomorrow with finding articles. because I really like finding out what's really happening. It's more than just what I'm talking about. Let's see real world. What's really happening out there on our roadways. All right, so 0.18 to 0.30 is confusion. The next one is 0.27 to 0.40. Stupor. General inertia means that you're not moving. You don't want to stand up. You can't stand up. You can't walk. You may have thrown up. And by the way, have you ever thought about why do people throw up when they drink? You don't throw up when well, I guess you do if you eat too much. Yeah. Because your body can only do so much, whether it's eating too much or drinking too much. You have a built-in safety valve in your system. Your body is smart, and it's saying, you're doing something to me that I do not like, and it wants to get rid of that poison, that alcohol. So that's why you throw up. So if you see someone and they're throwing up or they've peed their pants, what was the Lady Gaga movie? What was that? It just came out too. I keep on forgetting the name of it. I should write it down because I always mention it and I can never remember the name of it. But remember Cooper, okay, the other actor. Remember when he went up to the stage, if you saw the movie? Remember, he peed himself. He was an alcoholic. He was at this level. He was in a stupor. He went up there on stage in front of everybody and he wet himself. If you see this at a party, and I want you to write this down. If there's nothing else that you remember from this little section right here, I want you to remember this. If you're ever at a party and you have friends that have drank alcohol and you don't know how much they've had to drink, Star is Born. That sounds right. Okay. Star is Born. Thanks. Call 911. Please put a asterisk, a star, circle it in your notes. Be a hero. I will tell you right now, your friends will probably talk about you. They may ridicule you, call you, a party spoiler or whatever. You need to get help to people that are in this shape. Their life depends upon it. Be a hero. I will tell you, and I think I have it in tomorrow's class. There was and it happens a lot in fraternities and sororities where they do hazing. But people will drink to this level and no one will call for help. And they find the next day that they're dead on the couch or dead at the bottom of the stairs where people just walked over their body. You cannot let people that are affected by alcohol, we call it alcohol poisoning. You've got to call 911. They need your help because the next slide is coma, and then after coma, this is 0.35 to 0.50. By the way, only 15% of the drinking population, not the regular population we have in the world. We're talking about people that actively drink on a regular basis. Only 15% can drink to this level and still live and talk about it the next day because they're getting help. Their body is telling them, shut down. And after coma comes death. Yes, you can drink yourself to death. Here's a story. And I tell you, I always like with road rage and things like that, I like getting stories because I think it adds to the class. Because if I say, if you drink to this level, you're going to die. Well, in this case, this person did not die. She's part of that 15% that can actually drink to high levels. If you take a look at the article, halfway down in the second paragraph, halfway down, it says that she was behind the wheel of a vehicle with an astounding BAC level of 0.70. That is the highest in South Dakota. She should have been dead. How she got to that level, I don't know. Probably an act of God. But the other funny thing about the article, and you'd think, if I ever did that, I'd be so embarrassed. I would never drink again. I've learned my lesson. But down at the bottom, it says, after being released from jail, she went out and she stole a vehicle a week later, and she was behind that vehicle drunk. We have a real problem with alcoholics telling them don't drink and drive because they don't listen. I have to get to work. I have to get to see my kid. They give you a million excuses why. But one of these days, it's just not being stopped because they were going too fast or too slow or they ran a red light. One of these days, they ran a stop sign, ran a traffic light, and they crashed into another vehicle. There's nothing, I think, more devastating to read in the paper where a senseless act behind the wheel of the car resulted in someone losing their life. And drunk driving is that. And now texting and driving is way up there too. That's way up there. Probably more people have crashes with texting and driving than they do with alcohol and drugs now, because everybody's got a phone. Not everybody drinks every day. Let me show you the brain and how it works.
It may be legal, but it is still a drug. Be safe, be sensible, know your limit. Alcohol is a drug too. Think before you drink. Your body belongs to you. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the impact that alcohol has on your brain and the damage it can do. Our goal is to provide you with information which will enable you to make informed choices in relation to safe alcohol consumption. Did you know? Healthy people metabolize alcohol at a fairly consistent rate. As a rule of thumb, a person will eliminate 1 standard drink or 10 mils of alcohol per hour. And remember, it's not how many drinks you have, but how much alcohol you consume. Several factors influence this rate, including gender, age, height, weight, general health, the presence of food in the stomach, the concentration of alcohol in the drink, and prescription or illicit drugs taken by the person. It's the blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, which is the key to why we are affected by alcohol. Basically, your blood alcohol concentration is the relationship between the total amount of alcohol in your system divided by total body water, because alcohol is dissolved and diluted in water. So that's also why drinking lots of water with any alcohol consumption is a really good thing. The BAC and the effects of alcohol go up when the body is taking in alcohol faster than it can metabolize it. For example, if you binge drink and consume a 750ml bottle of rum or 3 bottles of wine, that's around 26 standard drinks, between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m, your body will need until sometime around 6 p.m. the next day to process and get rid of the alcohol. And that's why driving or operating equipment the next day is not only illegal, but just crazy, particularly when you consider what this is doing to your brain. Let me explain. Alcohol enters the body and ends up in the stomach, at which point about 20% is absorbed immediately, and the other 80% is absorbed in the small intestine. The heart then pumps the absorbed alcohol to every part of the body, including the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord, and it gets to the brain really fast. So that's why even after just 1 drink, you can feel lightheaded or relaxed. Alcohol acts primarily on the nerve cells within the brain and interferes with communication between nerve cells and all other cells, slowing everything down. And that's why when we drink even a little, we experience the effects of alcohol on our emotions, judgment, balance, memory, speech, and anger levels, just to name a few. Did you know that your brain is still developing until you're around 20 to 25? So we need to be really careful because alcohol can do some irreversible damage to various parts of our brains. For example, drinking affects the cerebral cortex, which controls our senses, and inhibitory centers, which is why when you drink, you become more talkative, more self-confident, and less socially inhibited. It also controls our thought processes, so alcohol affects our ability to make good judgment or think clearly. The brain's frontal lobes are important for planning, forming ideas, making decisions, and using self-control. So when alcohol affects the frontal lobes of the brain, you may find it hard to control emotions and urges, and you may act without thinking, and even sometimes become violent or act completely out of character. Does this sound familiar? The cerebellum is important for coordination, thinking, and being aware. So again, you may have trouble with these skills when alcohol affects the cerebellum. That's why people affected by alcohol sometimes can't walk properly or lose their balance and fall. The hippocampus is the part of the brain where memories are made. So when alcohol reaches the hippocampus, you may have trouble remembering something you just heard, or even worse, have a blackout and not be able to remember what you did last night. If alcohol damages the hippocampus, you may find it hard to learn or remember things in the future. The hypothalamus is a small part of the brain that does an amazing number of the body's housekeeping chores. After a person drinks alcohol, blood pressure, hunger, thirst, and the urge to urinate increases, while body temperature and heart rate decreases. And finally, the medulla controls the body's automatic actions, such as your heartbeat. It also keeps the body at the right temperature. Because alcohol chills the body, drinking a lot of alcohol outdoors in cold weather can cause a person's body temperature to fall below normal. This dangerous condition is called hypothermia. Your body belongs to you. Get the facts. Alcohol is unsafe for the developing brain. Alcohol can damage your brain forever. The long-term functioning and health of your brain depends on the choices you make today. Your responsible attitude toward alcohol can have a positive influence on your friends and family. Your body belongs to you. Take care of it. It's the only one you have.
So that's a quick overview of things what we've been talking about tonight. Just to show you how bad people actually can be when they get behind the wheel of the car. A drunken driver hit a pole support wire that decapitated his passenger. So his passenger must have had his head out the window. He then drove 12 miles to his home and slept in his bloody clothes, leaving the headless body in his trunk, or in his truck. A neighbor discovered Daniel Brom's headless corpse in the truck in John Hutchinson's driveway and called authorities. Corporal Dana Pierce said officers found Hutchinson asleep in his home. Didn't even know what happened. They later found Brom's head near the pole. How can you drive 12 miles to your house and not know that the person you had sitting behind you no longer has his head? That's crazy. That is bad. I don't know what happened when he went to jail. I mean, I'm sure that he's spending a lot of time in jail. But just when you think that you've read some strange stories, it just gets weirder. It gets weirder. So part of what I want you to do for your homework is to find an article where someone was driving with a high BAC level. So I'm going to take a look at those as you send them in later tonight and tomorrow. And we're going to just talk about, these are people that thought they were well enough, physically and mentally fit enough to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. I think it's going to amaze you after learning what these BAC levels, as we talked about tonight, how high these levels are of people getting behind. So the question that a lot of people say, well, what's the solution? What are we going to do? Well, education is key, but rehabilitation, rehab is the key to eradicate people going from social to problem to alcoholic. There are many ways that you can get counseling, to get education, to get support. AA is part of that. Personal counseling is part of that. In-house counseling, or where they send you away for 30 days because your body needs to detox. And you saw that in a few of the interviews in the videos. Is if you are so bad, we've got to separate you from your family, your friends, your surroundings, detox your body physically and mentally, and see if we can set you straight. And people do have relapses. It does happen. but we have to basically have some type of intervention to change people's behavior, because they're going to hurt themselves or they're going to hurt someone else behind the wheel of a car. So here's a person that actually went to a inpatient facility, and he talks about how he started to deal with his issues, with his problems, and how he got his alcohol drinking under control. I'm just going to show you just a little bit of his recovery.
I started drinking on a daily basis when I was about 14 years old. I had drank alcohol a few times before that, but I started drinking every day in the 9th grade of high school. And I finally left home when I was 16 years old. I just left home, went to Daytona Beach, and stayed there until I turned 17, and I joined the military. I did good. I made rank. I actually went through my first rehab when I was 21 years old. I was about 8 months shy of getting out of the Navy. So drinking definitely, I was good at it. It helped relieve these problems that I had. I could close the doors, whatever. And this went on for years. For 26 years, I drank like that, morning till night. In the morning, it didn't really matter if the beer was cold or not. I just needed it. Sometimes I would just wake up. I think my body would wake me up, to be honest with you. But I would be shaken, and I would go out in the carport, or like I said, go to the refrigerator, grab at least 2 beers, and sometimes I would, the first one would come back up, but then after that it would stay down, and after about 3 or 4, then I could pour a cup of coffee, talk on the phone, start doing what I had to do. My rock bottom came when I was so afraid to drink anymore because I was having blackouts during the day. Couldn't remember talking to clients. I couldn't do finances. I couldn't run my business. I couldn't do anything. And, I just totally thought that I was a failure. I thought that I was no good for anything anymore. I just knew if I didn't get help, it was over. That I would just go home and I would either drink myself to death or my wife would, it would be it. I was very emotionally unbalanced and I was a wreck. And that's how I knew it was it. I definitely hit my bottom. Turning point gave me the life I think I should have always had. They gave me assignments to do, which I worked on. The biggest thing I started doing was talking, was sharing what was going on with me and how I felt. But between the assignments I was given, starting to pray, opening it up, being honest about what was going on with me, I started to see a little something there. I started to feel like I was worth something. Just that there was a place for me, and that
So one thing that I want you to see here is that he definitely hit rock bottom. He was very emotional. But let's kind of backtrack to the beginning of his testimonial. When did he start drinking? In high school. I mean, as I told you from the get-go, most people at the age of 12 have tried alcohol. I know from every class that I've been teaching over the years, some of you will hear this information and hopefully learn something from it. And then there's going to be others from you that will say it's not me. And then it does become you. I will tell you, when I worked for the state of New Hampshire, when I was working in Concord at the first offender program for about 3 months, they needed help up at the state prison. At the state prison is where people go that have multiple DWI. So this was not their first rodeo. This has happened to them before. So the state makes you stay up there for a 10-day period. Kind of like what we just saw this guy. There are classes that you have to attend. We start giving them some tools how to cope with dealing with problems, and so they don't always revert to drinking to solve problems. And that's a big thing about drugs and alcohol. It's to numb a lot of the emotional and physical pain. Well, anyways, while I was up at the state prison for 3 months helping out, I came across 2 of my ex-students. I had 2 students that I had in driver's ed. They were now in their mid to late 20s. We were walking down the hall. I still can remember it. I looked at this guy and I go, geez, he looks familiar. And he stopped. He looked at me and he goes, Mr. Toll? And I go, Jim? He goes, oh, man, I'm so embarrassed. I said, oh, man, I feel bad for you. What happened? So we had a moment to talk about it. And he was an athlete at Keene State. And he was always at parties. He said he had his first DWI while he was in college. And now I think he said he was around 26. So it was 2 years out. He was at a business function. And he said, I kind of got back into it and started to drink too much. And they got me again. So I'm here on my second. And the other person, he was in a different part of the program. So I saw that he was there and he did see me, but he wasn't in the group that I was dealing with at the time. But I asked the person that was running his focus group, and they said, oh, yeah, that's who it is. He said he saw you. He said he feels embarrassed. So these things do happen, but there is hope. And that's the thing that you need to know is you need to get help. Whatever way you need to find help, go for it. Don't try to do it yourself. We're going to get back to Jackie's story in a minute. I'm going to try to end a little bit later, but I want to kind of get to a few things here. There is no excuse ever for getting behind the wheel of a car under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Back in your parents' day, in my day, we felt, we drove to a party, we got to get home. How are we going to get home? Because there's no taxis in some of these rural areas. Because of Lyft, write this down, a 4-letter word, Uber, Lyft. Uber or Lyft. It may cost you money. I will guarantee there will be people at the party that will say, hey, I'll pitch in $5, $10 to get you a ride home. You shouldn't get behind the wheel of the car. There is no reason why you should either drive a vehicle after you've had alcohol or drugs, or if you're a passenger, call Lyft, call Uber, call a parent, call a friend. You have options. Stay there. Sleep in your car. Don't think that you can drive. In some towns, and depending the time of year, they will, like for graduation and things like that, they will set up designated drivers, or someone will pay, like a bar will pay on New Year's, will pay a taxi company to get people home safely. Be responsible. That's all it is. And the other thing too, and I should look into this, I've seen it, I've heard about it, but I've never really researched it enough. And this is making me think about this right now when we were talking about BAC levels, is that I know for a fact there is an app that you could buy something that goes into your phone where you could blow into it and get a reading of what your BAC level is. So you should never be at a point where you go, oh, wow, I think I'm okay. And then you blow into it and go, wait a minute here. I'm blowing a 0.11. I thought I was like at a 0.06, 0.07, below the legal intoxication for an adult. No, you're about 3 drinks beyond. You must have had a very stiff drink. Let's take a look at some of the, and I'm going to show you this tomorrow, but I do want to touch on marijuana because it seems to be such a prevalent problem in a lot of states now with the legalization. Just because they've legalized pot for people because of medical conditions, aches and pains. They can't sleep and stuff. And we can get into the medicinal benefit of THC. But the one thing that you will find, no study will ever tell you that your driving improves under the influence of THC, marijuana. It's false. There is nothing that will help. No, I guess I will say there is one type of drug that will help you to a mild degree, and that's caffeine, and that's if you're tired. And by the way, you do not sober up with caffeine, so all you have is a wide awake drunk. So will coffee help someone that's been drinking all night long? Very little. Very little. So don't think that's the cure-all. But if you are tired, introducing the drug caffeine into your body will make you a little bit more alert, keep you awake a little bit. So that will happen. But marijuana is considered one of those mild it's not really stimulant, mind-altering drugs. It does affect quick thinking. It's more towards the depressant side. Reflexes slow down, causing difficulty to respond to sudden unexpected events. So you have a hard time tracking, staying in your lane. You're going to brake very quickly. Can't keep speed very well. You go too fast, go too slow, back and forth. And your following distance is way off. It's whether it be too close or way too far. It's that fluctuation. There's no continuity to your driving. So you do stand out. You do, especially when you're under a high level of THC. So let me show you a clip. They did a study, and I wanted to show you this clip about how marijuana does make you less effective behind the wheel.
22-year-old Katherine Johnson has had her medical marijuana license for 3 years.
I got it for a bike accident where I broke my back in 3 places.
Every day, to relieve her back pain, Kate smokes pot or eats food laced with it.
Just from experience taking pain pills, they make me so loopy and out of it and just real spacey, and driving on those, I feel like I'm a hazard, and I will not drive on pain medications. But marijuana, it doesn't affect me in the same way. I'm still able to be alert and concentrate.
Driving while high has long been a staple of stoner movies.
No, I don't like breaking the law. Yeah, I can see that.
But as marijuana has gained legitimacy as medicine,
hey man, am I driving okay?
It's not just Cheech and Chong who are toking up and then getting behind the wheel anymore.
I think we're parked, man.
Drugs affect people's divided attention.
Glenn Davis trains Colorado police officers to spot impaired drivers. He says the effects of marijuana on driving can be subtle.
They may do well focusing on one thing, driving the car straight down the road, but when they have to start making decisions like, do I signal, how fast am I going, do I turn here, that's where the impairment is manifests. If you take a drug into your body and it comes to a point which causes impairment to the slightest degree, that's driving the influence of drugs or impairment, or if it causes influence which is substantially incapable, you shouldn't be operating a vehicle.
But Kate Johnson believes marijuana actually makes her a better driver.
It almost calms me down to a point of where I'm not in a hurry. I'm not going to have road rage. I'm not going to get upset if I'm stuck in traffic and I'm running late for work.
And Kate was willing to prove it by taking a driving test on a simulator after smoking a joint. But law enforcement and some lawmakers want to put the brakes on people like Kate. Right now, in many states where hundreds of thousands of people use medical marijuana legally, there is no limit on how much THC, that's the active ingredient in pot, can be in someone's blood while driving. The question is, should there be?
If we could get consensus on the exact right standard among medical marijuana and legalization advocates and law enforcement on the other side, I 100% would support that.
Sean McAllister is a pro-medical marijuana lawyer in Colorado, where medical marijuana use has exploded. He supports the push to establish what's called a per se standard. That's a limit for THC in the blood, much like the one for alcohol. But medical marijuana advocates say no other prescription drug, not painkillers like Vicodin or sedatives like Valium, have a specific limit.
No other medication has a per se standard, and people on the medical marijuana community feel they're being singled out. But I agree it's going in the right direction. I think law enforcement feels that they need to send a strong message that even though it's legal, we want to avoid public safety impacts. And I think, overall, that the idea that people shouldn't be driving impaired is the right idea.
But McAllister, who served on a state task force studying the effects of marijuana on driving, says it's too early to establish a hard limit because there's just not enough data on how high is too high to drive.
We don't have consensus on what the science is, so we should be able to set a standard that says, well, if you're over this, then there's a presumption you're probably impaired, but if you want to go to trial and tell a jury why maybe these other factors should be considered and you weren't really impaired, I think that's the right way to go in the meantime.
Other factors, like the time between when the marijuana was consumed and driving, and the tolerance that can result from long-term use. But marijuana advocates like Paul Armentano point out another problem. Unlike blood alcohol levels, which can be instantly determined with a breathalyzer, measuring THC requires a blood test. The test results are slow, and police just can't do them by the side of the road.
Do you think there is out there somewhere, though, a reasonable standard?
That's a difficult question to answer. Because right now, the only tool we have when we look at this science to try and determine an association between recent marijuana use and impairment are blood tests. And we are never going to have a roadside blood test. It's one thing to have a breathalyzer test for alcohol, because breathalyzer tests are seen by the courts and by the public at large to not be particularly intrusive. And it gives us a result at the scene.
Instantly, right.
Instantly.
But the lack of data or a quick and easy way to test for THC hasn't stopped some states where medical marijuana is legal from taking a zero-tolerance approach. In 3 of the 15 states where medical marijuana is legal, driving with any THC in the blood is a crime. Only one state, Nevada, has actually set a legal level, but advocates say it is far too low. A bill to set a blood THC threshold in Colorado died recently, when lawmakers said they just didn't have enough evidence to pick the right number. That prompted the state's attorney general to accuse lawmakers of failing to act on a critical public safety issue, saying in a statement, "I have seen the damage people driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol can inflict."
Anytime you're impaired and anytime you're behind a vehicle and you're driving, you're a danger.
Mark Ashby is a police officer and trained drug recognition expert. He says that the medical marijuana in use today is a lot more potent than the pot people used to smoke recreationally.
I think that people think that this drug is the same thing that was smoked back in the 60s, and it's not. The THC levels are so incredibly high. There's reports of people having hallucinations on it. It's an entirely new chemical. It's an entirely new problem for us.
We wanted to see for ourselves what happens when people drive after smoking medical marijuana. So we took 3 volunteers, Kate, whom you met before, Adam Curtis, and Jeff Tunnell, to a driving simulator where Ashby could evaluate their reaction times and whether their abilities were impaired. Our volunteers met us at the lab for a 2-stage test. First, driving before consuming marijuana to establish their baseline skills. All of them said the simulator was not quite the same as driving a real car.
Takes, I think, a little getting used to.
It does. That's what you're doing.
Turns, these are
Just
weird.
get comfortable with the way the steering. It's real easy to oversteer.
After a little while, they got the hang of it.
Yeah, I'm used to the gas and the brake. It's just the turns that are throwing me off still.
So our volunteers have now finished their first round on the simulator. What they're going to do now is go out and ingest marijuana. They're going to come back and take another test, but this time they're going to have a DRE, a drug recognition expert here, watching them drive and seeing what the effects might be. And we'll see what happens.
Adam was first up.
Adjust the seat, the steering wheel, so you're comfortable. Just like this morning, right?
But Adam seemed to be having a little trouble. Mark Ashby, our police expert, told us what he saw.
On Adam, we could see that he never even reacted appropriately.
Now we're going 80.
Sorry, I thought this was my miles per hour.
He had to be reminded where the gauges were.
The tachometer's on your left. The
Okay,
speedometer's on your right.
sorry. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I had it confused.
Okay. We didn't change the gauges.
The car in front of him started to slow down. Then all of a sudden, it braked to a stop to avoid an accident, and he ran right through it.
This is the moment of impact, and he barely flinches.
Do you think part of that could be attributable to this is a simulator, but it's still a very odd environment, and when a car stops on a video screen, you just don't react the same way you would if a real car stopped in front of you?
Quite possibly, but from talking with the gentleman when they did their control run this morning, none of those indications were there when they were prior to taking the chemical that they ingested.
Later, on a trip up to the mountains, Adam had to contend with an aggressive driver on an icy road, and he ended up flipping his car.
Icy.
Yes.
Next up was Jeff,
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start the car with the key.
who had not consumed marijuana. But we didn't tell our expert that because we wanted to see if he could really tell the difference.
Jeff came in and sat down like he'd been in this car a dozen times. He sat down, he kind of got comfortable, he kind of checked the steering wheel, he checked where his gauges and his turn signal was, and he put his hand up there like he'd been there 100 times. Smooth turns, properly done. The good thing is he looked at the traffic approaching. If you notice, when he came through the underpass and there was that road coming off from the left, there was like 2-3 vehicles over there. He stopped and he focused and focused and focused for enough to make sure they were stopping before he went through. That's great. All in all, I'd say he's did not show signs of impairment.
Just take a foot off the gas, merge into traffic at the top of the hill.
Finally, it was Kate's turn.
She seemed to be a little calmer, maybe a little bit more focused. She was able to see, she reacted properly to the stoppage in the road. She gave an adequate amount of distance. I did see her looking around a little bit, checking her mirrors a little bit more. So when she made her left turn, the first one, she went way out into the second lane, almost all the way to the right edge of that. And then the second one, she turned right in the middle of the both lanes and then rode the median, the dotted line for several feet before she corrected and moved outward. So.
Ashby said both Adam and Kate were noticeably impaired. Adam more so, as seen with his accident. And our third volunteer, Jeff, who hadn't consumed any marijuana, passed with flying colors. Now, our little test was anything but conclusive. What all sides of the debate do agree is that more data is needed to develop reasonable standards. But one thing is certain. As more and more people legally light up, the debate over DW high will do anything but die down.
So as you can see from the video that it does affect the way that you drive. And Adam and Kate definitely showed signs when they had consumed some marijuana, some THC, that their driving was just a little bit off. And Jeff looked like he had been driving the same way, so the inspectors had no idea at all that he had consumed any marijuana. So I just wanted to give you an update of what is going on nationally of the debate of decriminalizing marijuana, how that's going to affect you out on the roadway, because people will have consumed edibles or they've smoked, and now they're getting behind the wheel of a car. And technically, they're legally able to do it at home or wherever they are, just like people drinking 1 or 2 drinks at a restaurant, still getting behind the wheel of a car. So marijuana has now kind of gone into the acceptable field of consumption like alcohol when it comes to driving. So what I'd like you to do for your homework is to research online to find 2 articles dealing with a drunk driving crash. And I want you to make sure that there's a BAC level to it. And I want you to kind of read the article, get a good sense of what probably went wrong. So they'll tell you that they were going too fast, ran a stop sign, ran a traffic light. And then I want you to write a reactionary paper to basically what you think could have been different. Give the example. He was at work. He could have had a coworker, could have had the Lyft, could have had the Uber. So what I really want you to do is take a look at the real problem that's out there on the roadway. It's not a person having 1 or 2 drinks. You're going to find the BAC levels where people have basically consumed probably like the equivalent of 12 to 15 drinks. I mean, they're going to be very, very high. And we'll take a look at some BAC levels tomorrow too. I do want you to let me know tonight about April vacation. Let me know about tomorrow or Friday. So those of you that normally drive on Thursday, I believe you still have a study hall, but I believe the times have changed. So if you still want to drive, or I'm going to try to beg you to drive, that way I can make use of my time, that we can get that under control. So tomorrow we'll be on offenses with drugs and alcohol. We'll kind of wrap this up, and like